listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
What a difference 4 months makes. 4 months ago, we had a podcast with John Eichberger where we wanted to separate the hype from reality in EVs. Today, 4 months later, we want to separate the unhype from reality with EVs and talk about what is going on in the EV market. So joining us today is John Eichberger. He's the Executive Director of the Transportation Energy Institute, and he's our resident expert in all things transportation, including EVs. Over the last couple months, last time we talked, we didn't have fourth quarter financials from all the auto manufacturers. We didn't have first quarter financials from all the automakers. And we didn't have all the news that's come out as recently as last week. So first off, welcome, John. And
Thank you.
What we want to do here is look at Henry Armour, our NACS CEO, at the State of the Industry Summit 2 weeks ago. One of the things he said is, change comes slow, then it comes suddenly. I think our discussion with EVs, change comes slow, then suddenly, then slow, then who knows what next. And that's basically where we are with the EV market, from what I can tell.
You know, every time I give a presentation, I have a picture of former Secretary of Defense Don Rumsfeld. There's known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. And my headline is, beware all forecasts. Anybody who tells you they know what the future is trying to sell you something, and they're probably full of crap. So I always caution people. That's why at the Transportation Energy Institute, we don't do forecasts, because they're always going to be wrong. There's so many variables that can affect the trajectory of the market. There's no way you can account for all external factors or even internal factors that may affect what's going to happen.
So when we talked beginning of this year, beginning of 2024, we wanted to separate the hype from reality. And it was looking at some of the underpinnings beneath the euphoria about the expected hockey stick curve of growth of EVs. And we said, since then, we've come down on a more slight bump in the road, if you will. You want to talk about where the market stands now and what might have impeded these really fantastic predictions about where EVs would go?
Yeah, I think, when we look at the past several years, a lot of the announcements, a lot of the studies have been very aspirational in nature. And I've used that term for a long time. We know what we hope will happen, what we think can happen. A couple major consulting firms a year or so ago said by 2030, half of all vehicles sold in the U.S. will be electric. Well, they didn't caveat that with under certain scenarios, under certain assumptions, certain conditions. And so you had a lot of people reading headlines and going, oh man, the revolution is upon us. The red coats are coming and might as well just lay over because the whole market's converting to electrification. Fast forward to the last couple months, headlines about Tesla not matching the same units sold first quarter 2024 as first quarter 2023. Chinese auto manufacturer BYD has seen a decline in sales. You've seen domestic automakers dial back some of their production plans, lay off some workers, cut down shifts at their electric vehicle facilities. You see headlines about, the 6 weeks that stopped the EV trend. And now people are going, hey, see, EVs were just a complete farce and a fad. They're over. Well, they're a fad like rock and roll was a fad. They're not going away, but they're hitting a bump in the road, as you said. And I think we have to remember, this is a very immature industry. It's a very new market. And with everything new, there's going to be good days and bad days. There's going to be ups and downs. We had a few years of significant growth, 2020 to 2023. Battery electric vehicles, these are pure vehicles that can only run on electricity. They grew from 1.6% of market share to 7.2% of market share in 3 years. That is a huge, very fast upward trajectory. Here's the deal. That type of year-over-year growth is not sustainable. And so you saw a decline in sales in fourth quarter last year, another decline in market share first quarter 2024. And it's making people think, well, I guess the trend is over. We're hitting an inflection point. Something's going to have to change to move to the next tranche of customer adoption. But the electric vehicles are not going away. They're just slowing down a little bit. And I think that should have been predictable if you look at, what the reality is in the market.
So you had a post prediction, and you were accurate.
I never publish predictions. But I always challenge other people's. It's a great position to be in.
No, but your broader point is kind of hit that where will we get the new customer set? And it reminds me, recently the NACS Coca-Cola Retail Research Council put out a white paper looking at what might we do with our industry and jobs. And one of the things is they looked at what percentage of the population is incentible to working in the industry and why. And then the next part is who could be incentible and how might that happen? And it almost seems to me that with EVs, the analogy is that we've reached that first incentible group. They are the ones that are going to get EVs because they're going to get EVs. And now we move to the second group, and the story might need to be told a little differently. I don't know if it means that we need to look at, as a country, the incentives like Norway has that related to convenience, where you get free parking and you get to ride in HOV lanes, things like that. What are the things that might move somebody from a regular ICE to an EV? And then the second part of that is, as we explore this more, what are the opportunities for retailers? And I know that that's not all to be answered in one question. So let's just start with that first basic one is what kind of things do EV manufacturers or the EV advocates need to look at to bring the next wave of advocates to their level?
Yeah, and I think that is a critical question. I had a conversation at the Society of Automotive Engineers conference this month as well about the same discussion. The first movers have moved. The EV advocates have advocated. The tech-savvy adopters have adopted. How do you get the family that is working on tight timelines, working on extremely busy schedules? How do you convince them that the electric vehicle is the right choice for them? So we used to think it was all price. But quite frankly, over the last 12 months, prices of EVs have come down dramatically, and they're fairly competitive, especially with the tax incentives, with combustion vehicles. Yet market share has still gone down. And I think what we are now facing with, and what the EV advocates and the OEMs have to really understand, is what is the additional benefit and value to the driver for acquiring an electric vehicle? There might be a total cost of ownership advantage. Most consumers don't think that way. They think, what's my monthly payment? So we get monthly payments in line, and it's there that you have an even question across the two, which is hopefully where we're going to be soon. The next question is, does it make my life easier? And I think for most, maybe, because I can charge it at home, and my typical route's only 40, 50 miles a day, so it works fine. It's reliable. But for really busy families, it just adds one more level of consideration they have to think about before they leave the house. And if you've met some strung out parents with 3 or 4 kids, don't ask them to do anything else. They'll punch you right in the nose. And I think that maybe where we are is the automakers have to figure out, okay, what is the inherent additional convenience and value to that family to buy this vehicle over that one? And I think you look back to the end of last year, the auto dealers came together and sent letters to the automakers, said, please, our electric vehicles are piling up in inventory. We can sell hybrids. We can sell hybrids all day long. Please send us more. And the automaker said, we will. We're going to reinvest in hybrids. Why? Because you are improving the efficiency. You're reducing emissions by up to 30% compared to a regular traditional combustion vehicle. And the customer doesn't have to do anything different. You and I have done customer surveys for I don't know how many years. And I remember one of the lines I loved that we threw out there years ago. We'd ask customers, would you pay more for an environmentally sensitive fuel? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd pay 25 cents more for a per gallon, no problem, to protect the environment. Yes. But we always know the only green they care about when they pull up at the gas pump is in their wallet. Same with consumers when they're looking at the EV, but for them, if all things operationally and acquisition are equal financially, my time is now my value. And how does it help me get more time?
I think that's an excellent point about families. And I remember the Transportation Fuels Institute, formerly known as the Fuels Institute, had a meeting a number of years ago and was walking through how people make buying decisions for cars. And there's one thing that they cited that they noticed customers would look at super high-end sports cars. And they're all into the idea of this, and then all of a sudden they buy a Honda Civic or something like that. And they puzzled for a bit. And it's, why does somebody go from looking at a high-end sports car to something that is modest? And the answer is families. And it sure was aspirational, just like some of these EV sales were. But it ultimately comes down to, it's okay if you're by yourself and you say, my time's worth this much. I don't mind charging. I don't mind doing this. But when it's the family, it's a different dynamic. And I think that'll be a really important consideration. And you'll probably see commercials that come out more that talk about how families benefit from EVs.
We did a study a while back, and it was about 20 years of vehicle sales data compared to the gas prices and stuff to find out what are the real priorities when selecting what kind of vehicle to buy. What we determined from that analysis was utility is number one. What kind of vehicle do I need to satisfy my daily activities? Am I commuting? Do I need a high efficiency vehicle? Do I have a family? If you look at the type of vehicle that is being sold the most, it's the crossover utility vehicle. Why? Well, there's some regulatory maneuvering that helped contribute to the emphasis on crossovers. But from the customer perspective, they're a little bit higher. You can see better. They're a little bit bigger. You can carry more. Yet they have the efficiency of a mid-sized car. So you're getting an SUV without the economic penalty. They're also cheaper than a truck or an SUV. And so you're getting a larger, safer, more useful vehicle that gets better fuel economy than most vehicles that you have option to for the same price or less. And so people are going to buy the vehicle they need. Within that, they'll buy the one that has the best price or the best fuel economy or the best features. And your comment on the sports car analogy, look, you don't have to talk to anybody to research a sports car. You don't have to go to talk to anybody in your family if you want to go test drive one. But if you're a family man or a family woman and you want to go buy one, well, now you got to convince somebody else to let you do it. It's a whole different conversation.
Well, you don't have to. You can just buy it and go home, but that's going
There's
to
that.
be, but you're not going to be part of a family much longer.
As a colleague of ours used to say, life is a series of choices. You're about to make one. That may not be the best choice.
No, that would be a poor choice. But I want to go back to another point. We talked about family and how do EV manufacturers focus on that. The other critical point I think you made is, does it make my life easier? We talked about how it makes my life easier, how they might need to reposition, how it makes my life easier as a family. But let's go up the chain a little bit. How do EVs make, what needs to be adjusted for how EVs make a car dealership's life easier? And then follow that down. How do EVs make a fuel retailer's life easier? So let's start with upstream and look at car dealers.
It's not. It does not. Until they become ubiquitous and they become so familiar to everybody that the salesperson doesn't have to explain the car, it's going to be a challenge. Now, you can incentivize a salesperson to prioritize the sale of EVs, and they might do that. But if you have a family coming in or a customer coming in saying, hey, I need to buy a car, this is kind of what I'm looking at, to say, hey, have you tried an electric vehicle? The question is going to be, tell me about it. Well, now you're in a 30 to 45-minute conversation. Whereas all you want to do as a salesman is get them behind a wheel to test drive and make them fall in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a challenge. I think the dealerships also, most of their money comes from the service department. Contrary to belief, EVs do require service. And some of the service can be pretty expensive. They don't require oil changes. They don't require the routine maintenance that a combustion does. So there's a challenge and a risk of losing some revenue from the service department. So for the dealership, that EV may not be the best option for them. For the fuel retailer, there's an argument to be made that if you have DC fast chargers, people are going to spend 15, 20 minutes on your site and they'll buy more in store. There's some anecdotal evidence to that. Now, we have a new program we're going to be rolling out here pretty soon that hopefully will get us enough data we can analyze that effectively and through actual data to quantify whether that is a economic value or not. And if there is, what is the value that you can expect? But overall, you're investing, even with government money, you're investing a couple $100,000 in equipment that is new to you, new to your site, new to your customers, and reliability right now is not real high. Now, there's a huge upside too, because if you're in a market where a lot of EVs are being sold, you want to capture that customer.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to follow your customers and put in the equipment that they need for their mobility needs. But it's still not 100% sure it's going to work out. I saw a CEO of a large corporation who's been investing in EV chargers for their C-store business say that they are exceeding expectations. They're actually doing really, really well. It's a very successful investment, but it would not have been so without incentives from the government. Until we get to a point where we don't need government money to make this work, we're going to be struggling to convince enough retailers that, yeah, now's the time to get into it. I still think there's a huge opportunity that we need to continue exploring as an industry.
Yeah. So go ahead.
You asked a 3-part question.
No, I know. That
So
usually means...
I'm giving you an 8-part answer.
Okay.
The last one is the customer. And you know what? Everybody that we just talked about, the dealers and the retailers, if the customer said, I want EVs, we will provide them EVs and service equipment to support those EVs, period.
Mm-hmm.
But getting them to say that in mass quantities is going to be a challenge.
And a lot of it is going back to the customer's utility. And if somebody, a family of 4 hops into a car and the start is, there's 10 cup holders in here, you can put all the drinks, all the snacks that you want to go to soccer practice, etc., you've painted a picture. If it's, well, you can charge during the soccer practice over 30 and 40 minutes because, and not watch soccer practice or something like that, then all of a sudden it's a bird. You have to paint that picture. Now, want to end by talking a little bit more about retailers. Usually when a problem is in the fueling infrastructure, the retailer gets blamed. And the retail, and usually doesn't go well. You're gouging, you're doing something wrong, fill in the blanks. With charging and the decline in sales, there has been discussion that there isn't enough chargers. Mm-hmm. But it hasn't been necessarily linked to retailers, that traditional fuel retailers, which I think by all accounts are seen as the logical place to have chargers. As we're in this EV evolution that used to be a revolution, where is the opportunity for retailers right now?
So I think the markets can be very different because you can charge at home, charge at the office, and on occasion you charge at the grocery store, the shopping center, at the library, if people still go to libraries. For some reason, the advocates keep talking about putting chargers at libraries. I just scratch my head every time, since everything's online these days. But you're going to have more opportunities, which we call destination chargers, where people are going to spend some time. And they don't need to be DC fast. They don't need to be fast chargers. So they're a lot less expensive, a lot easier to maintain. And we need to have a lot of those everywhere to support the market. But when the customer needs to recharge quickly, whether they don't have at-home charging capabilities or they're going on a trip or they forgot to charge or something and they need to get a charge, the convenience industry is going to be their go-to place. They're going to immediately think about, where do I get gas? That's where I want to go, see if they have a charger. And that needs to be a fast charger. And that needs to be a 10 to 20 minute meaningful delivery of electrons. your question earlier about how do we bridge this gap between first movers and the next tranche of adoption, we don't need 500-mile EVs. We need 250 to 350-mile EVs that can charge in 5 to 10 minutes. That's where we need to go. We need to have that rapid charge. That's going to convince the customer they're never going to be stranded. They're always going to be able to get back on the road quickly. 5, 10 minutes, they can handle that. 20 to 30, no, not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so for the retailers, there's the business, that effort we're putting together at the Institute is to look at where are chargers needed based upon a variety of market conditions. EV registrations, EV charger installations in a market, number of single-family homes versus apartment complexes, travel patterns, highway exit areas, and alternative fuel corridors, and a whole bunch of different things to start figuring out where is there a deficiency in charging opportunities in a given market and where's an overabundance, so that NACS members can start looking at those maps and go, oh, I'm in that market and there is a lot of demand, but no chargers. Maybe the time is right for me to get in. Timing your entry helps you make money. If you time it when demand is best and you optimize utilization, you may be able to make money. If you go in a market that doesn't have any demand or is oversaturated with charging opportunities, you're going to struggle. And so we want to start eliminating some of that uncertainty so that retailers can start making more informed decisions about when to invest in a charging infrastructure. And I really do believe that there's an opportunity, but it's not going to be every market. It's not going to be for every site. It's not going to be for every location. It's going to be very select. And the competition isn't just the gas station across the street. Your competition is that library that's offering free Starbucks to draw people in or something like that.
Yeah, and we did a recent survey looking at where should they be located. We asked restaurants, malls, if people still go there, hotels, etc., and grocery stores, the only place where you might be lingering a little longer, where that 20-minute sip is all you need. So there's the Transportation Energy Institute has a conference next month. And I know EVs are going to be on the docket to be discussed, looking at some new consumer data that's not yet published. Any advanced look that you can give related to what will be discussed? Still want people to go to the meeting, but there are a couple insights that might let people know why they might want to go to the meeting.
Well, we'll be publishing a survey we did last year. It took us a long time to get to peer review that evaluated and talked to EV site host operators and businesses, EV drivers and non-EV drivers, to start figuring out what site amenities are drivers looking for and what site amenities are the EV site hosts actually offering, and trying to optimize how you tap into the mindset of the driver. Next month, we do have a new survey that was just done this year that's looking at the mindset of the consumer in general. How do they feel about EVs? When are they looking to buy a vehicle? What would help them decide to get into the EV market? And then we're going to talk about the consumer itself and how not all consumers are the same. And that's the other thing that's been a big motivation for our organization, is to clarify to people that not everybody lives in Palo Alto, California. Not everybody has a single family home. We have inner city urban America. We have rural America. We have tribal America. We have low income communities. We have high income communities. They can't all afford the same solution. So we need to be bringing them transportation energy options that are affordable, reliable, and can get them where they need to be. Otherwise, we are condemning them to be trapped in their situation, not giving them an opportunity to expand their future opportunities. And so this mindset that policies can dictate a technology and they've picked a technology and that's the only technology we can talk about, are going to fail society. And they're going to fail because if society doesn't embrace it, they're not going to succeed. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. Equity. We're going to talk about the politicization of electric vehicles and why it shouldn't be a political issue. It should be a market issue, a customer issue, a business issue. And we're going to talk about EV infrastructure. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about liquid fuels and low carbon fuels and you name it. We're going to talk about it because we're going to have 150 people in the room that have very different perspectives and everything. And that's the whole value of what we do, is to bring those perspectives to the same topic. So we're not stuck in our own echo chambers. We break out of our offices and have to talk to other people.
And I think if we did a word cloud of this conversation thus far, the word that would be largest is opportunity.
Uh-oh.
Opportunity.
Okay. I always get concerned when people start talking about that after I've been talking for a while.
But thinking back, talking to folks outside the industry, and they say, well, you must hate EVs, or you must love what's going on, or anything like that. The reason we're talking so much about EVs, is it about the opportunity? And it is about the opportunity, if it's right for you. And thinking about what you had mentioned earlier and looking at analytics, huge opportunity in thinking about the difference between a gas customer or diesel customer and a charging customer. When you have a gas nozzle, there's, besides a credit card transaction, there's really no other data that somebody can glean about you. It's a static charge, but it's a bill. With EV,
no pun intended.
We don't want static around the gas either.
And
so
we don't want charge.
So we'll have AI clean this thing up. But but with EVs, when you're holding that nozzle, that's connecting to a compute. Those are two computers connecting and talking about what that customer does, is doing, and will be doing. And that is a huge opportunity for, I think, retailers, not today, but soon, to have real deep insights over what happens once that charge connects, and how do they take advantage of that, and what are the opportunities if it's right for me.
Yeah, and my advice to retailers has been the same for the last couple of years. One, optionality needs to be your strategy. You need to be preparing yourself to provide the energy your customers want, when they want it, where they want it. So on the EV front, look around your market. Do you see EVs in your market? Are they at the school? Are they at the shopping center? Are they at the grocery store? Go talk and become friends with your auto dealers. Do they have EVs to sell? Do they have anybody who wants to buy EVs? Mm-hmm. If they do, can they get EVs? What's the status of that? And then call your utility, because you're going to need to partner with your utility to some degree, no matter what kind of system you put in. What is their plan for bringing EV chargers to market? How long before they can service your market if you want to get into heavy-duty, high-speed charging? That could be a long wait. Get in the line now. You don't have to do it, but you might as well have a place in line in case the time comes and you want to. So I'm a big believer in, you don't need to pull the trigger now in most markets, but man, do your homework now. So when you realize the time's right for me to strike, it doesn't take you 4 years. And then you become the last guy on the block to have a charger. That's not going to serve you very well at all.
So starting the homework by going to the Transportation Energy Institute annual meeting. Give us some details about where they can, what they need to do for that, and get more information about TFI.
Yeah, we're going to Minneapolis, May 13th to 15th. Start with a welcome reception Monday evening, the 13th. Go to transportationenergy.org for agenda information, list of registered attendees. We update that frequently. All the speakers are up there. Registration information is up there. Look, we're going to have around 140, 150 people, and it's going to range from oil companies to EV companies. It's going to be biofuel companies, equipment providers, retailers, national lab engineers. One thing I love about our group is if you have a question, I guarantee you there's somebody in the audience who has an answer.
Yeah, and there's so many different perspectives, which makes this conference very, very unique. And it's not, it's about as diverse a series of mindsets all brought together with the same common goal as you can possibly put in a room.
And the other thing is here, and this is just, a little personal. If you've ever been to a convenience petroleum conference, that's where I started. We still throw a heck of a party. So not only do you learn a lot, we have a lot of fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously. It's a jeans and type of atmosphere, and we have fun. We talk about a lot of important stuff, but we bring the right people together to really make sure that we learn and we walk out of there with a much better knowledge about where the market may be heading and how we can take advantage of it.
Well, John, hope you have a bunch of friends there joining you in mid-May in Minneapolis. Thanks for joining us today and kind of separating the non-hype from reality. And when we talk about this again in a couple months, we'll see if it's back to hype or still on non-hype or somewhere in between. So again, great feedback, and thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.